super funds' ability to borrow has meant small business owners acquiring their premises in their SMSFs is growing in popularity. But this move has sparked some warnings from both the government and the RBA, with these bodies concerned it could lead to SMSF overextending themselves and being taken for a ride potentially by some who may spruik to make a sale. Grant Field, chairman of MGI Australasia, joins us now for more from our Brisbane studio. Grant, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Pleasure. Good afternoon, Ingrid.
Let's just start firstly, in your view, what are some of the advantages, I guess, let's set the scene, to taking control of your super investments?
Look, I suppose there's a range of options, as we know, available for people to invest their superannuation funds into these days. We've got the traditional retail fund that many of the banks and financial institutions have. We've got the industry funds, we've got self-managed super funds and a range of other things. So what we certainly have seen in recent years is a shift to self-managed superannuation funds. And just to paint a bit of a picture from the Australian Tax Office's own statistics, the total number of self-managed super funds as at June last year were around 500,000 self-managed super funds with around 1 million members. So we're seeing a typical self-managed super fund consisting of a mum and dad with an average fund balance of about $500,000 each. So a typical mum and dad fund with a fund balance of around $1 million.
So in terms of rules and regulations, particularly for small and medium businesses that need to be sort of carefully navigated, what are the key ones we need to watch for?
Look, one of the governing ones for self-managed super funds is what's called the sole purpose test, and basically that just requires that the super fund was established for the sole purpose of providing superannuation benefits for members. So obviously if there was an ulterior motive, then there's a question mark over whether that fund will retain its complying status. At a more operational level, there are probably 3 or 4 big ones. Obviously a superannuation fund is not allowed to borrow except in certain prescribed situations. There are rules relating to what are called in-house assets, and basically they're just loans to or investments in a member or an associate of a member. And there are also a set of rules around the fact that you can't acquire an asset from a member or an associate of a member, again, unless that meets certain tests. And that really comes down to a business premises that's used by the taxpayer, or listed securities.
Yeah, so that growing in popularity is business owners acquiring their own sort of premises in their SMSF. What are some of these sort of benefits and on the side the implications of that?
I suppose from the benefits point of view, Ingrid, obviously many businesses will operate through a company structure, so that company would pay rent if the premises were owned by an arm's length party, and the company would get a tax deduction at 30 cents in the dollar. If the business premises are owned by a self-managed super fund, market rent would have to be paid, of course. The superannuation fund, if it's in accumulation phase, then it would pay tax at 15% on the rental income received. So immediately there's a 15% benefit, if you like, that the company gets a tax deduction at 30%, but the super fund only pays 15% tax on the rental income. Once that super fund goes into pension for the fund,
either start to draw down a transition to retirement income stream or have reached age 60 and draw down a pension, then the income of the fund then becomes tax-free. So you've got the company picking up a tax deduction at 30% on the rental you've got the super fund paying potentially up to on the rental income it receives. There's also a benefit, or potential benefit, if and when that premises is sold. If it's sold and it's owned by the self-managed super fund and that super fund is in pension phase, then the tax payable on that capital gain of that business premises is nil.
All right, so any other tax deductions you can take advantage of in that scenario?
In the company, the tenant paying the rent, absolutely. It's a normal arm's length commercial deal.
All right, Grant Field, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks, Ingrid.